Okay, the business of thirds. This is going to be a bit of a workshop, this one, where I'm going to use the whiteboard a little bit to help explain it. Now, first off, where did it come from? Business of thirds. Well, I actually called it the rule of thirds for so long, for years and years and years. And then when I left the business renet, I started researching all my favorite terms like business judo and time duplication. And I Googled the rule of thirds, and it turns out it's a photography term. So it's no longer a Scottyism, it's a very common term. So I gave birth to the fact it's about business, and it's called the business of thirds. So that's something I've been teaching forever. Now, I had it in the 90s because in the 90s we used a model for tracking and keeping our performance cards. And that was like a strike rate. But the business of thirds is completely different. Some people said even the business of thirds is a bit like the 80-20 rule. And I can live with that. I get the analogy. But then again, no, it's not. It's actually completely different when you look at the 80-20 rule. But I'm not going to talk about the 80-20 rule. I'm going to talk about the business of thirds. So where did it come from? Right, well, let me give you the backstory. I originally came up, apart from the fact it was a strike rate, I originally came up with the concept of teaching people about the business of thirds when I was talking about surfing. And I was always talking about in the water, when we go surfing, I can break the guys in the water into one of three groups. There was the biggest, the fittest, the strongest and best surfers, and they always got all the good waves, and that was the top third of the guys. Then there was the complete opposite of those guys, which is the people that were beginners and not very good. They were learners and they were just getting out there or only went surfing on holidays, and they weren't the top guys. Well, they were also in the water, but they were, getting in the way and doing whatever they were doing. And then there was a bunch of guys in the middle. So there was the third that were beginners, there was the third that were advanced, and there was a heap of people in the middle that went either way. They got some of the good ones and they got some waves and they sat in the middle and they enjoyed themselves. And that was a bit of an analogy with surfing. And so if there's 30 guys in the water, that's what would happen. Or if there was 100 guys surfing, that's what would happen. But what I realized was, hey, that's the same as sales and business. It's the same thirds. It happens all the time, just like that. So what I'm going to show you now is how the business of thirds works. So, all right, so let's get it really simple with it in just the first stage and go, the business of thirds looks like this. Let me make it a bit bigger. So there's the business of thirds. There's a tick at the top, a cross at the bottom, and an each way bet in the middle. Really simple, plain English language for you to learn. So essentially, let's say in a sales environment, how's the business of thirds work? Well, a third of people are going to like you and want to deal with you or buy from you, and a third of people won't. And there's a third of the people who go either way depending on how you do your presentation. Okay? And in fact, the same people are up here as here. In other words, they like you because you're young, you're old, you're male, you're female, your race, your religion, your culture. They like you. And it's for exactly the same reasons down here. But for the opposite, of course, for your age, your sex, your religion, you like football or soccer, whatever sport you follow, music, they dislike you for the same reasons. But there's all these people in the middle that are neutral. They're in the middle. And that's where we really need to harness. And that's the basis of the business of thirds. As you can see, completely different to an 80-20 rule, but I get the analogy. So let's dive in and have a look at how you use the business of thirds to grow your business and achieve your goals.